Hello and welcome to the Alcohol Free Vibes podcast, a high vibe space where we talk about all things spirituality, manifestation, raising our vibrations, and walking away from the manifestation block that is alcohol. Whether you're newly sober, sober curious, or you've been sober for a long time, this is the place for you if you want to learn more about spirituality, manifestation, and how letting go of alcohol can make you so much more powerful at manifesting. It's time to stop drinking, start living, raise our vibrations, and step into our manifestation power. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Alcohol Free Vibes podcast. In this week's episode, I thought I would give you the lowdown on some of the most supportive books I've read on my alcohol-free spiritual journey. For me, books and learning in general and being inspired by others is an absolute game changer when it comes to making any kind of change in your life, and when it comes to growing and expanding our souls. So I'm going to take you on a little journey through some of the books that have been really supportive for me, and I hope I am able to give you some ideas that are supportive for your journey. Before we jump into that, just to remind you, if you would like to connect with me because you would like to talk about coaching options, please do send me an email to thrive@coachingbyanneka.co.uk. Anneka is spelled Anneka. Please do check your junk email if you contact me, because often my replies go into people's junk, and that is the only reason why I ask for phone numbers when you contact me through my website. I will never call you unless you ask me to. I will never try and sell to you on the phone. I will never share your phone numbers. I literally just have them so that I can send you a quick WhatsApp to say, I've just emailed you, please check your junk folder. So anyone listening who has emailed me recently and you think I haven't replied, I have. Check your junk. So yeah, I just wanted to say that because it's been happening a few times recently. As well as that, if you click the link in the show notes, you'll see the link to my Stand store where you can access some of my free offerings, including my 30-day Sober Curious Reset Guide. And also there is a self-led video training on there, which is all about how to socialise sober. And there are also some really low ticket offers as well there. So there's the 30-day audio challenge, which is a 30-day, you get an email for 30 days, holding your hand through your first 30 days alcohol free, and each day all you need to do is press play, listen to the sound of my voice, and sometimes there's a meditation on there, or a pep talk, or some actions for you to take, and that's only £20. Also, if you'd like something more ongoing that is continually drip feeding you spiritual up-leveling knowledge, then why not join the Sober and Soulful membership? It's only £30 a month. You get a monthly community call on Zoom in there, as well as the self-led video training under the month's theme, along with a meditation audio and journaling questions. So if you've got any questions at all about any of the things I offer, please feel free to send me an email. Okay, so let's get started then with my book list, and how they've been supportive, how these books have supported my own journey, and I'll just give you a little bit of information on them. So the first book I would say that took me on this journey, put me on this path, was the book Easy Way to Give Up Drinking by Alan Carr. Now, I read this book for the first time when I was still at university. And this says a lot, doesn't it, for how quickly I knew that my drinking couldn't really go on the way it was. I mean, I didn't start drinking like heavily or binge drinking really until I went to university. And I do remember on the first day of university looking up at the bottle of vodka on my bookshelf and thinking, you're going to be my new vice now. I really remember having that feeling. Like I shifted in that moment to change my relationship with alcohol for the worse. And very, very quickly, I got into this pattern of just feeling like I needed to go to the bar every day. It was such a quick shift. Anyway, so I think it was after my second year of uni, I remember reading this, because I had kind of noticed, like, I didn't really like going a day without having a drink. And I went back to this book a few times. I do think everything in this book is so helpful when it comes to stopping drinking. And eventually it did click. I did go and cement what I learned from this by going to a seminar as well, run by the Anneka Easy Way Clinic. But this book is a really, really, really good starting point. If you're looking to start your alcohol-free journey, I highly recommend this as a starting point. And there are two more books that could be read after this that I would say complement and add to the information in Anneka's Easy Way book. The first one is Alcohol Explained by William Porter. Now, in Alcohol Explained by William Porter, he includes more of the neuroscience than Anneka does. And I find this really, really helpful. And in fact, I refer to neuroscience a lot in my own coaching and in Sober and Soulful. Anyone that's done either of these things with me will be very well versed on the neuroscience behind what's going on when we drink. And if you want to read more about that, then I really do recommend Alcohol Explained by William Porter. And actually, on the note of understanding the neuroscience, Drink by Professor David Nutt also explains that in excellent detail. Similarly, The Alcohol Experiment by Annie Grace also refers to this. Now, The Alcohol Experiment by Annie Grace is also helpful because she gives you practical exercises to do to help you put your drinking under the microscope and understand what's really been going on. And when I say understand what's really been going on, one of the strange things about alcohol is that until we start to understand the neuroscience behind what's going on in the back end, if you like, we don't really realise how much alcohol manipulates us, and it creates this really false reality where we believe we need it or it provides benefit. And when we start to understand what's actually happening in our brain, it all starts to make sense, and we realise, oh, it's not actually providing any of the things I think it is. I'm being manipulated by the alcohol and the way it's interfering with my brain, and that's being reasserted by the ideological beliefs around alcohol that society continually repeats back at me through advertising, through social conditioning. So it's really, really helpful to start to put all of the things that you believe to be true about alcohol under the microscope. And these, I would say these 4 books together are massively helpful for doing this. So Easy Way to Give Up Drinking by Anneka, then Alcohol Explained by William Porter, followed by, I missed one out, This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. So This Naked Mind by Annie Grace is kind of on a similar vein to Easy Way to Give Up Drinking and Alcohol Explained. And then The Alcohol Experiment by Annie Grace is the one that's more of a practical experiment guide, practical activity guide to help you question your drinking. So these are really, really good foundations to any sober curious journey that I would recommend anyone starts with. Now, understanding the way alcohol works so that we can kind of shine a light on how it's been manipulating us, I think it's so important when we go down this path to be inspired by other people. And in fact, when it comes to manifestation, our mirror neurons need to see it to believe it. We need to see examples of people who have achieved what we want so that we can then do it ourselves. And this is for anything we want to manifest. We need to have role models that we look up to, that we resonate with, and we think, yeah, if she can do it, or if he can do it, so can I. Or I want to be like them. There's something in them that reminds me of myself, and they're making me feel really excited and inspired that I can achieve what they have. So I think the most positive sober book I've ever read is Sober Positive, very aptly named, by Julia Carson. I loved reading this. She got me so excited about being alcohol free. And she does tell you like the gritty truth of what her drinking was like at the start. But if you keep going, she just makes you feel like you want to do cartwheels about being alcohol free. She's really into sober treats, treating yourself, just focusing on all the positive sides of sobriety. So I really, really recommend that, especially if you're just starting out and you feel like you're going into a bit of a lack mindset around not drinking, then this is a really good one to kind of help you have a bit of a shift and move into what I call an abundance mindset. So we know that we don't want to be manifesting from the energy of lack, right? Because if we are in the energy of lack, we're just going to manifest more lack. And if we're in that energy, then we are just going to basically want to drink because we feel like we're missing out on something. So this is why I always approach alcohol-free coaching and alcohol-free everything with an abundance mindset. You're not missing out on anything. You're just gaining stuff. You were missing out when you were drinking. And Julie Carson really preaches that as well in this book. So I highly recommend that. Mrs. D is Going Without by Lotta Dan is just a nice, quite funny read about someone who stops drinking and what that was like for her. So that's quite autobiographical and that's quite funny to read. As are Catherine Gray's book. I love Catherine Gray. So her first book, The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, is very positive about sobriety once it gets going, but she's very vulnerable and honest about how bad her drinking got. So it starts off quite dark. And just to reassure you, it does get really positive. I remember I listened to it on audiobook the first time I consumed that book, and I was still drinking at the time. And I think perhaps maybe it was triggering some of my own shadow because I sort of felt a bit guilty about my drinking, and my drinking didn't get to the point that hers did, thankfully. But I do remember feeling quite dark when I was listening to it, like, oh, this is really, really like a difficult time that she went through, and it was quite scary. And I think it's probably more scary because I was still drinking, and I was like, oh, this feels very uncomfortable. But once it gets going and you see her come out of it, then you sort of see how fantastic her life is without alcohol. So it is a really, really good book. And then the next book that she wrote, which is Sunshine, Warm, Sober, she's writing a few years into sobriety and all the things that she's still learning and gaining in her sober journey. So that's a lovely book as well. And she's got a lovely narrative tone, has Catherine Gray, that I really, really enjoy. If you're fancying a bit more of a practical guide, then Healthy, Happy, Sober by Janie Lee Grace is great. She's really into holistic health and well-being. She gives you loads of recommendations for like nutrition, supplements, just ways to like really love and look after yourself, really. And she has got contributors, like lots of different experts contributing as well to that book. So if you're really into the kind of holistic well-being side of things and you want to look at all aspects of that, like your nutrition and your wellness, etc., then that's a really, really good book to read. On that note, you may or may not know, Janie Lee Grace is the founder of the Sober Club, which I'm also a coach for. And that is such a supportive online community. It's £18 a month, I think. And there's a really incredible supportive Facebook group on there. And she does awesome Zoom meetups with guest speakers. So that is a really great way. If you are on your sober journey and you want to have a bit of support from other sober curious people or sober people, it's a really, really fantastic support system. As you all know, if you're listening to this podcast, a massive, massive part of my sober journey has been opening up to my spiritual self and expanding my awareness of this. Now, as you probably know, my main kind of core learning that I share in my business is that alcohol is a manifestation block. And I really believe that it cuts us off from the voice of our highest self. It makes the voice of the ego, the voice of fear and catastrophe, super, super loud. We are numbing continually when we're drinking, and we're not opening ourselves up to the healing that comes when we let ourselves feel our feelings. We're dampening down our inner guidance system, and our inner guidance system works both through uncomfortable and comfortable feelings. And when we try and numb those uncomfortable feelings, we're not listening to our sat nav. We're not doing a U-turn when we need to do a U-turn, right? We're just staying stuck when we do that. When you don't listen to your sat nav, you just turn the engine off, right? And you just park. And that's what we do when we drink, in my opinion. So anyone who is just getting into manifestation, I would recommend some good starting points are, I wouldn't actually bother with many of the secret books because I think they're quite watered down. But the one book that I do think is worth listening to or reading is The Greatest Secret by Rhonda Byrne. This one has got everything you need to know from all the other books, in my opinion. And this one, she actually talks about feeling our feelings. I think some of the earlier secret books were misinterpreted and kind of fed into spiritual bypass, where people kind of became scared of their uncomfortable feelings and tried to push them away. And that's really not what we want to be doing. But in The Greatest Secret, she explains how we can actually feel our feelings and process them. So that's a good start. Ask and It Shall Be Given by Abraham Hicks, or any books by Abraham Hicks are a great starting point. But again, be wary of subscribing to spiritual bypass when you listen to or read Abraham Hicks, because it can be misinterpreted. And if we try and push away our uncomfortable feelings, honestly, that's what we're doing when we're drinking. That's not what we want to be doing. We want to feel them so we can move through them and release them. When we try and push away our uncomfortable feelings, we actually keep stuck in them. It does the opposite. It creates resistance. This is the opposite of what we want. I really loved reading lots of Gabby Bernstein books as well at the beginning of my journey. So I think The Universe Has Your Back was Universe Has Got Your Back was the first one I read. And my absolute favourite of Gabby's, though, is Super Attractor. I love that book. So if I was only going to read one of those or recommend one, it would be Super Attractor. A really fun book to read is E Squared and E Cubed. I think it's E Cubed by Pam Grout. She has designed they're basically just energy experiments to help demonstrate to you how the law of attraction works. And it really is quite spooky when you try them and see what happens. So I love bringing together logic and intuition, the masculine and the feminine energies when I'm teaching manifestation. Our ego needs proof. It does. And when we shut our ego down, it just gets louder. So when we just give our ego what it needs, look, I'll give you some proof that spirituality is real. Of course, I can give you proof, and that will keep your ego kind of in its box. So this is a really fun way of taming the ego and giving it proof and showing yourself that manifestation actually works. I love these. She's also written a book called The Course in Miracles Experiment as well, which if you haven't heard of The Course in Miracles, it's a massive, massive text which has been channeled and it kind of feels like quite biblical in the way it's written, although it's not the Bible. But it's a really, really in-depth text that's got so much profound wisdom in. And it's very well known as being quite heavy going and difficult to get through because it's so big and quite wordy. So yeah, the Course in Miracles Experiment is like a fun book where you can just look at a little section of it every day. I really loved reading A Happy Pocket Full of Money by David Cameron. Don't know if I can pronounce this. Gikandi. This is kind of misleading because it's not all about money. It's very much about manifestation. Obviously money comes into that, but how manifestation works, and it's really, really good. The Science of Getting Rich by Victoria Maskell. Now, if you've been listening to my podcast a while, you'll know that I'm very good friends with Victoria Maskell. She's been on the podcast a few times, and this is her book that she's written, and it is fantastic. And this next book actually is one that Victoria recommended to me. So Victoria is a hypnotherapist and has a background in neuroscience. And I remember quite early on in my journey, she recommended the book The Genie Within, which is by Harry W. Carpenter. It's such an amazing explanation of your subconscious mind, how it works and how to use it, and how to basically hypnotize yourself. And I loved reading that book. It's full of highlighted parts. It's still on my bookshelf. I still refer to it all the time. So that's really good. Another book, There is a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem by Wayne Dyer, is really, really good. The next book that I'm going to talk about has had a massive, massive impact on me. And again, I read this book from cover to cover more than once. It's full of highlighted and underlined pages. And it is called How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera. Oh my goodness. If you really want therapy and you can't afford it, get this book, because this book literally teaches you in a detail all of the methodologies, really, not all of them. That's a bit of a generalised, sweeping statement. It teaches you quite a few approaches that a therapist would have with you. It teaches you about your inner child healing, shadow work, your nervous system, polyvagal theory, and it gives you quite a deep understanding of how to heal yourself. So it's called How to Do the Work, because if you read it, you can do the work, quote unquote, the work or the healing work on yourself. And it's just such a great book, because once you've got that foundational understanding, you can continually tap away at that healing. I'm all for working with professionals. I love working with professionals to grow and to heal and to learn. And obviously I support clients with doing the same myself. But I'm very much in the camp that we need to empower people so that this journey becomes a lifelong journey of healing and learning that never stops. I don't like it when people fall into this kind of mindset where, well, I've only got X amount of money to work with a therapist or a coach, and then when it's run out, then I can't carry on working on myself. I really believe in empowering people so that once you've started work with them, they've begun a lifelong journey that they will always be able to carry on, even when they finish working with you. So this is a really fundamental text if you would like to go on that kind of journey where you're able to show up for yourself despite who you may or may not be working with. So those people who you're working with complement the journey that you're already on your own. She's also got another book which goes with this called How to Meet Yourself, which is a workbook, and it's got lots of practical like journaling activities and things you can do. Another great book is Set Boundaries, Find Peace, and please forgive me if I've pronounced the author's name incorrectly, but Nedra Glover Tawwab. I personally think we all should be looking at our boundaries regularly. It's a little bit like water, right? I don't know if you find this, but I find with water, when I take my eye off the ball, it slips and then I have to refocus on drinking enough water. And boundaries are the same. And it's because boundary setting is not comfortable. We have to, we've got people pleasing behaviours that we might have picked up in childhood. And yeah, if we don't continually come back to a boundary setting, then it can fall away. A really, really helpful way I have of making sure I'm respecting my boundaries and honouring my boundaries is honouring my anger. Anger is a clear sign you need to set a boundary or that someone's crossing your boundaries. And whenever you feel anger, instead of telling yourself that you're not allowed because it's not a quote unquote good feeling, is just to go, oh, where do I need to set a boundary? So yeah, that's my little kind of siren for setting boundaries. This next book, I loved reading this. This book, The Old Soul's Guidebook by Ainsley MacLeod. Oh my goodness. It's so cool. It makes you think about life after death and rebirth, and the nature of how old your soul is and like why we come here. Oh my goodness, I loved this book so much, and it really resonated with me on a deep level. The Source by Dr. Tara Swart. Now, Dr. Tara Swart she used to be a psychiatrist, and now she works in coaching. She does some stuff with Lacey Phillips, who is the founder of To Be Magnetic. She's very into manifestation and reinventing yourself. She's got her own podcast called Reinvent Yourself as well. And I just love the way that she brings psychiatry and manifestation together and really looks at the neuroscience behind spirituality. I love that. So that's a really, really cool book. I also love the book Reiki for Life by Penelope Quest. So you may or may not know, I am a Reiki practitioner. You can actually book in for remote Reiki with me through my website if that's something you're interested in. And I loved reading this book when I was doing my Reiki training. And I refer back to it all the time because it just gives you so many creative ideas for how you can use your Reiki in fantastic ways. What else can I tell you? So Energy Code by Dr. Sue Morter. That's an amazing book. I read that actually before I'd really quote unquote woken up when I was still living in Dubai, and I remember being like, whoa, this is mental. I don't think maybe I should reread that actually, because I think I probably see it all in a very different way now. If you really want to bend your mind and start to really question the fabric of our reality, I really recommend The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. So there are scientists out there that have kind of pursued the hypothesis that we are living in a hologram, which I find like quite a cool idea. So if you like that kind of thing, this is a cool book. And then the last book I'm going to recommend is The Divine Design by Laurie Ladd. Now, if you're interested in learning about the ascension, the global ascension, which we are all going through, we're moving from the 3D to the 5D, then Laurie Ladd explains all about this. If you haven't heard of the ascension, look it up. It's really, really interesting. You may have noticed that time seems to be going quicker at the moment. It's because the whole of planet Earth's vibrations are raising and time is speeding up. It sounds bonkers, but have you noticed that? Because it's happening. But I don't explain it very well. Laurie Ladd explains it much better in that book. You follow her on Instagram as well, and it's really, really interesting. So I hope you found these books helpful. If you read any of them and they really resonate, do let me know. I love to hear from you. And if you have read any books on your sober journey that you found really, really supportive, then also let me know. I'd love to hear about your reads. I'm always happy to get recommendations for myself. I love reading, and I hope that you have a lovely, restful or exciting or whatever kind of a week you need it to be. I hope you have that, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening to me today. If you would like to have the chance of winning a free one-to-one coaching session with me, then I'd love it if you could leave me a 5-star review. All you need to do is take a screenshot of the review and send it to me at thrive@coachingbyanneka.co.uk, and I would love to connect with you. If you would like to connect with me further and you'd like to download my free guide, then please go to my website and you can do that, and you'll be added to my mail list. Or if you would just like to book in a free discovery call with me, then you can do so via my email address or through my website. All of these links will be in the show notes. And I hope you have a wonderful, magical, sober week, and I will see you this time next week.